Moving on now, Deputy Bríd Smith.
Too many times I come in this time.
I'm watching you here now. I'm going to be taking you off when you speak.
Okay, I'm going to follow you up on the earlier line of argument, but it's just on the question of falling short of our commitments on the reduction of our emissions. Yesterday's EPA report showed that we are falling well short of the Climate Action Plan, which is law. And I just want to quote from Friends of the Earth, who issued statements yesterday and did a very good job in pointing out many problems, including coal use have increased to meet growing electricity demand, particularly from data centres. Will you make a statement on how we are going to reduce our emissions?
Minister. The main reason coal use increased, and it did, was because the price of gas went up so high that coal came in earlier on the merit order. And we're also a very tight situation in terms of power generation, not just because of data centres, but because of a whole variety of issues. Can I say, I attended the EPA conference yesterday and spoke and said the response here, in my mind, critically, is in the establishment of 6 acceleration teams in the development of offshore wind, in the development of sustainable mobility, heating solutions, some of the ones we mentioned earlier today, the development of acceleration of a just transition and the statutory commission there, a team on how we communicate this climate issue, and critically, most importantly, a team to look at how we develop and accelerate a land use review which optimises for rural development, decarbonisation, biodiversity restoration and reduction of pollution. We can and will meet these targets. We have to, not just with a moral obligation, not just because we have them national targets, but also because they're European now targets. There are slight variations to different accounting rules, but the basic trend and direction is clear. The European economy and the Irish economy is going green. Has to, for security reasons, for health and environmental reasons, but also because it's a more stable, it's a better investment, it's a better economy. And yes, it takes time to ramp up, and yes, it'll take time, and yes, there's difficulties across the country at local political level when you bring it down to making a particular investment decision or a particular decision around reallocating road space, or changing or delivering the sort of new forestry we need, and a whole range of other different developments. Those data centres will have to live within the climate limits. Everyone will. Every department actually is going to have to go to the max of the ranges that we set out within the carbon budgets this House discussed in the sectoral targets, because actually it's need that sort of scale of a collective leap. And no one exempted, no one has an opt-out, no industry can kind of devise or see its future without living within those limits, data centres included. But I would echo what Deputy Ledden says. If that's our only focus, and we don't address, as the EPA did yesterday, the real challenge we have in transport and agriculture, as well as in energy use, but those two particularly are the ones where we also have to apply the political pressure and attention and focus to switching to a better way, which is what we can do.
Minister.
Well, I think the emphasis here is on what you choose to pick out of it, but I will just say that Friends of the Earth were right. The usage from data centres of our national grid is absolutely shocking, is currently at around 14% and set to rise by 30% by 2030. Now, I think these kind of targets are unbelievable, and you seem to live in a fantastical world where, on the one hand, the Chair of the Climate Committee believes we need more data centres if we have no more renewables, but the problem is cows and cars. Actually look at the facts, and there is a real problem here that we can't attempt to reach our targets if we continue with this policy. And as you know, New Fortress Energy distributing leaflets quoting you and others around Shannon and think that they can convince the population that they're doing the right thing, we are actually heading on a hiding to nowhere, except lots of people making lots of profit out of this crisis. And we really do have to put a halt to it and be absolutely clear that the responsibility for that is on your shoulders at the end of the day, and the policy of promoting data centres on the one hand and then saying nothing to see here, move on, is absolutely hypocritical.
I'm saying that, but you should recognise at the same time that no new data centre has been approved since, I think it was September 2020. And what I say is clear. EirGrid and Crew have both recognised that in terms of that, the development of that industry, and it is an industry connected to the digital industries here employ tens, if 140,000 plus people. We also do need to hold on to those jobs, but that industry recognises that they have to live within those climate limits, as EirGrid and Crew and myself as Minister have clearly said. And it is true that this scale of the change we need to make is very challenging. And yes, we have an immediate challenge in terms of tight power supply. But actually there is signs in my mind across this country and a real understanding that Irish people do want to make this change and want to be part of the solution and see it as a better way forward. And it's happening in how we're retrofitting buildings. Those SEI plans introduced in February are starting to be delivered. Deputy Rourke, we disagreed on the numbers. When was it we've reached those 400 warmer home schemes a month? Well, we're there now, pretty much.
Thank you, Minister.
And I could pick numerous other examples where in transport, in agriculture, in energy, we're starting to make the switch. And I think the Irish people want that. Our job is to focus on where's the real challenge. I think to my mind...
Time.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Deputy Smith.
Back in.
Yeah, and then we have 2 supplementary questions.
Okay, I just really want to sum it up by saying that, first of all, any attempt to bring LNG terminal into this country will be met with the ire of the climate movement that you once represented, but I feel you're going to let down in vast numbers if this goes ahead. And it can't be just down to an energy review and on board Penollet. It has to be down to our global or our national and our global climate commitments and obligations. And if we have power outages because of the overuse of data centres on our national grid, then we have an insane policy. And that responsibility, I say to you again, rests on your shoulders. You're not representing the youth of this country who came out and marched in their thousands. And when you look at what's happening across the globe, in India, in Africa, in Australia, people are terrified of the knowledge of what's coming down the track. So any sectoral budgets that support data centre expansion, and as long as you leave the renewable energy market to the private sector, we are going to fail. So we have to be very clear: no LNGs, no private market in renewable energy, and end to the proliferation of data centres.
Deputy Durkin.
The Climate Action Plan sets out where we're going. It'll be revised this autumn, and it'll be revised as we assess, we learn by doing. And it'll have to make for a better country. We won't, by waving the fingers at people or blaming people or doing this as a device of politics where some person is the blame or some person is the responsibility. I don't think that works. I think this country is actually well placed to make the leap, and one of the reasons is because over the recent years we've worked in a collaborative, collective way, and we've recognised that where there are hard decisions to be made, that we will be willing to take it because at least it is collective. But there will be hard decisions. There will be hard decisions, particularly, as I said, in transport, in the reallocation of space. The truth where I find real challenge is it's in that area. There will also be hard decisions. I think there will be the right decisions in agriculture and forestry and land use, because we have a real issue with land use in terms of what the figures showed yesterday, it being a further source rather than a sink. And yes, in industry, certain industries are going to find it hard. They're going to have to adapt and accommodate to the climate challenge. But we will show real leadership in this side of the House and in our party in standing up for what we've always done, which for ecological justice, matched by social justice, through government, through local government, through national government, through opposition. Everyone has a role.
Thank you.